April showers bring May flowers, but who wants to wait until May? Today I have some wildflower inspired DIY projects for you guys to add to your spring decor. Let's get crafting. Did you know that you can create some beautiful spring decor with shower rings and a piece of cardboard? Let me show you how easy it is. So I grabbed this pack of shower curtain rings from Dollar Tree, and I also had this piece of scrap cardboard. I think this came out of a picture frame. I just saved that to use for a project, and it was exactly what I needed for this one. So I just took those shower curtain rings and just traced a circle in that cardboard, and I'm going to be making 5 of these. So I traced all of those out, and this cardboard is really thin. I didn't want it to be too thick, otherwise it would make the top portion of this project a little bit top heavy. So this thin piece worked perfect for me, and it was really easy to cut out with just a simple pair of my craft scissors. And you will also need either a small dowel rod or a bamboo skewer. You can use either one of these. I opted to use the bamboo skewer because I thought that just matched the size of this project a little bit better than that dowel rod. Of course, use whatever that you have on hand. I had both of these, and I didn't have enough of that one particular size of the bamboo skewer, so I did have to use some that were just a little bit smaller. And I painted all of those with one good coat of my Waverly chalk paint in the color moss. And I wanted to add just a little bit of dimension to my pieces of cardboard, so I grabbed out my polyfill stuffing and just took a small amount of that, kind of pulled that apart just a little bit and fluffed that up, and I just added some of that stuffing to each of my cardboard rounds, and I just used some hot glue to do that and used one of those little silicone, I think this was like a makeup applicator. You can find those at Dollar Tree as well. They work great when you are working with hot glue so you don't burn your fingers. And I have a lot of different fabrics in my stash. This one is one of the fat quarters that you can get at Walmart. And I just measured out what size I would need to cover all of that polyfill stuffing as well as the cardboard circle. And I just cut out 5 pieces of that fabric. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you are enjoying these projects so far. And if you are, please give this video a thumbs up and click that hype button. If you are new here, welcome to my small little corner of YouTube. I'm Alicia, and I am so glad that you are here today. Now let's get back to our featured projects. And I started gluing that on by just adding some hot glue to 1/2 of my cardboard round, and I pulled from the corner first and then just went to the middle and to that next corner. Just press that down firmly in that hot glue, and I did the same thing on the other side. And if you did get your fabric pieces a little bit too big, all you have to do is just trim that off, and you'll have a cleaner finish on the back side of your cardboard round. And you might have to add a little bit of hot glue here and there just to make sure that you have all of your fabric glued down. And you do want to pull that as tightly as you can while you are working, so you have a nice finish around all the edges of your circle. I looked through my ribbon stash and I pulled out several different colors. I did some pinks, some purples, some cream colored ribbon, and I also went back and pulled out some blue. You can do whatever colors that you want to for your project, and if you don't have enough ribbon to do this portion, you can also use fabric or something like that you have already on hand. And I did cut out between 7 and 8 strips of each of my ribbons. I just wanted to make sure that I had enough to go all the way around my shower curtain ring. And initially, I started to tie this in a knot, and then I realized that that wouldn't look the way that I wanted it to. So I just looped each piece of my ribbon or lace and just put that loop through the ring and then just tucked those tails through that loop and pulled that tight. And I repeated this all the way around my shower curtain ring for all 5 of these. And you can use as much or as little ribbon or fabric, whatever that you are using. I wanted these to look really full, so I tried to push all of my pieces together tightly and not have any gaps where I could see that shower curtain ring. And I did have to go back with just a small dot of hot glue on some of my ribbon. Some of this is that satin, the slick kind of ribbon, so it did not want to hold very well. So I did go back and just add a little bit of that hot glue and pulled those tails just to make sure my ribbon wouldn't come loose and fall off of that ring. And here's what it looks like once I have everything completely covered and all of that extra hot glue there. And then I just trimmed off each of my ribbon tails. You can dovetail these if you want to. I just did these at an angle, and some I cut shorter than others, some I left a little bit longer. I am trying to get the look of petals because we are making flowers, in case you hadn't figured that out yet. So I just went all the way around, and I did trim just 1 or 2 at a time. I didn't try to trim a bunch together. Otherwise, I didn't get these even. And then all I had to do to finish the flower head portion of this was just to add some hot glue on the back side and glue in the center of my flower. And you can move that around and get it centered if you don't get that perfectly the first time. Just work quickly before your hot glue sets up. And I just added a little bit more of that hot glue on the back portion of my flower and added my dowel rod and a small little piece of that fabric just to hold that in place. Now for my leaves, you could use felt and you could cut those out, but I had some extra lamb's ear on hand and I just liked the look of these leaves. I thought it would match the look I was trying to go for with these flowers. So I just cut off several of those leaves and added them to each of my stems with just a small little dot of hot glue. And some of these leaves were a little bit curled and wanted to kind of fold up, so I did just put down my scissors or my wire cutters there and hold those in place just until that glue had set up. And here's a look at how my flower bouquet is turning out. I love the colors, and I think you get just some really amazing farmhouse vibes from this project. And I did just trim off those skewers just to have some different heights to add to my vase that I want to display these in. You can put these all together in one vase, or you can scatter them throughout your spring decor. But that is it for this project. Let me know what you guys think about this one. It is so easy and simple to do, and it comes together quickly, but I love the finished look from these ribbon flowers. I have this 12 by 12 wooden wreath base. This came from Dollar Tree, and this is also a Dollar Tree sign that I have already sanded and got a clean surface to work with. So I just want to remove this tag, and then I am going to use some of this plastic wood filler just to get these holes covered, so I won't have any holes in here when I start painting this. So when I flipped my tag over, I realized that I actually picked this up at the thrift store for 50 cents. Yes, it is Dollar Tree, but I found it at the thrift store. Do you guys find Dollar Tree stuff at your thrift store? It seems like I'm finding more and more things there from Dollar Tree. And I took my lid off of my putty, and I love this pretty pink color. I like that it's this color first, and I believe it dries white so you know that it is dry and ready to sand. Oh, nope, dries natural. Sorry, not white. So it goes on pink and dries natural. It does stink though. So I don't like that about this product, but this one I found at Walmart. So I just took a small amount of that wood filler and added it to each of those holes, and you will have to flip this over when you are adding that wood filler to any hole because it does just kind of push through. So you just have to flip that over and work on the other side as well. Just make sure that you get that smoothed and get the hole completely filled. And once that has dried, since this does dry a different color, you will know when it is ready to sand. I just took a piece of sandpaper and just sanded down any of that excess wood filler that I had, just to make sure everything was smooth and ready to paint. I did set that wood round aside, and I grabbed some of my truffle colored chalk paint from Waverly, and I did one good coat on that wooden ring. And I also did the inside portion of that ring as well, because you will be able to see that once we put our project together. And I took some of my plastered colored chalk paint from Waverly and did just a light dry brushing on this. Of course, you guys know how I like to distress things and make them look a little bit more farmhouse and vintage. That just fits my style. You can skip this step if you want to. I needed to make a guideline around the outside edge of my wooden round, so I just laid that ring over the top of it, and I tried to get this as centered as possible and even all the way around. It is a little bit harder to do because once you start tracing on that inside ring, you might move it. So I did have to do this part just a couple of times until I was happy with the circle that I had. I just needed this as a guideline before I added my decorative element to that wood round. So I just took a pencil and carefully tried to go around that inner portion of that ring. And you can see there where I didn't have that completely lined up the way I needed it to. So I just did that again, and it helped me with the next part of this project. I just looked up some images on Google of some simple wildflower designs, and I just traced out one that I felt I could do fairly easily with a pencil. And this is what that looked like once I had everything completed. And you can see there I didn't take my stems all the way down to that pencil ring that I had drawn earlier, because I don't want any of that to be overhanging once I add that ring on at the end of this project. So for this part, I just used some Crayola air dry clay, and I tested out one of these first before I showed you guys how to do this. So you just want to take a small piece and you want to roll out a very thin snake with your clay. And the glue that worked best for me was just the Elmer's white school glue. I tried some of the Type Bond Quick and Thick, and it just did not work for this project. It doesn't come out of the bottle very easily, so I would highly recommend using that Elmer's glue. You just put down a thin bead of that glue and lay over your clay that you have shaped to match the design that you have drawn onto your wood round. And I just used my X-Acto knife to cut off any of that extra clay on the bottom, because I don't want that again going over that bottom portion or around the edge of this circle, so I will be able to glue that ring back down. And for the little berry portion of my wildflower design, you just want to make some tiny little balls with your clay, and you'll just take that glue once again and add each piece of your glue as you are creating those. So while your glue is drying, your clay will be drying as well, and you do get a few little cracks in this. I didn't have a whole lot of cracks once everything had dried, but if it's a really small piece of that clay, you will get some cracks in there, but you will easily be able to disguise that when you paint your finished piece. Now, to do the leaves, I just took a small piece of clay once again, kind of flattened that out, and made that into a teardrop shape. That's the easiest way that I found to do the leaves. Just place those in the area that I had drawn, and again added just some glue. You can add it straight to your clay that you are working with. That works well for this. And then just to get any detail, I took my X-Acto knife and did some of the veins in the leaves and just added a little bit of detail that way. And for those areas on your design, like your flower petals, you just want to shape your clay to match the area that you have drawn, add your school glue, and place it down. And once I had all of my clay pieces down, I just trimmed off anything that I needed to, made sure everything was where I wanted it before all of that glue had set up. And I did let this dry overnight before I did the paint for my project. And again, I just measured to make sure I had everything cut off where I needed it to. And that is how this looks. I just love the 3D effect that you get with that clay. I had a lot of fun with this project. This one was a little bit time consuming because it does take quite a bit of time to shape all of those elements that you need for your flowers. But once this had dried and set up overnight, I did a couple of coats of my Waverly chalk paint in the color moss. And to start with, I just used one of my larger flat brushes just to cover these areas a little bit quicker. After a long, really cold winter, I can't wait for the weather to start warming up and all of the flowers to start popping through. My favorite is a March lily because my birthday is early in March, so that's one of the first flowers that we will see here in Western North Carolina. What is your favorite flower and when do they start blooming? And then I did switch to a smaller round brush just to get in all of those smaller areas and be sure that I got all of that wooden color covered up from that background. I grabbed my Waverly Antique White Wax. I wanted to distress this and make this look more like a pottery piece, and those flowers just kind of pop off of that background and stand out a little bit more. Since I did a lot of work on those, I wanted you to be able to see those. So I just took one of my round chalk paint brushes and went lightly over all of those raised areas of the petals, the stems, the leaves, and everything, just to make sure I had all of those covered. And then I just grabbed a paper towel and kind of wiped back some of those areas that I thought might be a little bit too bright. You don't have to do this if you don't want to. It's totally up to your preference. And I did decide to add a little bit of that paint all over the entire portion of my sign. I just thought that helped it blend in a little bit better. And I did lighten up those flowers just a little bit more than the distressing that I put on the background. And I also did just some tapping up and down motions on the bottom in between the stems. I thought that was a really nice touch. It looked like I was adding some grass and extra florals in there. I just really liked the way that that looked. And to seal everything in, I did 2 coats of some glossy Mod Podge, and this really gave me the effect of kind of glazed pottery. So I am absolutely loving how this project is coming together, and I'm so happy with the results that I have gotten from this clay and that Mod Podge that I'm adding over the top of it. I wanted to make a hanger for this piece. I already had the perfect place that I wanted to display this in mind. So I just pulled out a lot of these different wood beads and I looked through them and tried to decide on the one that I liked the best that would coordinate well with the paint color and that brown color that I had put on that outside ring. So I finally decided just to go with those natural colored beads, and I just cut a length of jute twine that I wanted for this. I didn't want it to be too long because I don't want to have to add a lot of beads to this. So I just tied a knot in one end and threaded 12 beads onto my jute twine. And just to attach my hanger, I added a little bit of hot glue, and then I had just some scrap pieces of this faux leather, and I put that over the end of each string of my jute twine just to make sure I would have a good hold between that twine and the glue, and hopefully this will stay on for quite some time. And then just to add that ring onto the front, I took some of the wood glue super glue that you can find at Dollar Tree and just put a thin bead of that all the way around. And I like using this wood glue, the super glue, instead of hot glue because I was able to just move that around and make sure that I had it in place. And I just took a paper towel and just wiped off any of that excess glue. And you can use clamps or something heavy just to make sure that you hold this down until that glue has set. I just grabbed some of the paint bottles that I had sitting on the corner of my craft table, and I did let that set up overnight. And once everything was dry, this is ready to display, and I put it in a place in my dining room where I have some other wildflower decor already. What do you guys think about this one? I love how it turned out, and I think I might be adding a few more of these and have a vignette of sorts of these wildflowers. That wraps up our projects today. I hope you guys enjoyed these. Be sure that you like, hype, and share if you did. And I hope you will consider subscribing if you haven't done so already. Also, be sure that you click that notification bell so you don't miss any of my future videos. I hope you have a blessed day, and I will see you in the next one.